Good morning to all the listeners. I, Ranjan Kumar Singh, PGT Physics from Kendriya Vidyalaya Kankadbagh, Patna, welcome you all in e-learning sponsored by Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan Regional Office, Patna. Today, I will discuss various topics which are on your screen related to the chapter number 6 of class 12th physics, which is electromagnetic induction. So let us take all the topics one by one. The first topic under this is magnetic flux. Well, at this time, I know all of you are very well aware of electric flux, which you studied during Gauss theorem. Even the magnetic flux also sounds similar to electric flux. So its definition is simple. It is the number of magnetic lines of force passing normally through the given surface. Mathematically, you can also define it as the product of area and the component of magnetic field normal to that surface. You can see the same thing in diagram. Well, this is a small area ds. N cap is the normal vector and this is magnetic field. So you can see here the component of magnetic field along the normal is B cos theta. So the magnetic flux can be written here as B dot ds or B ds then N cap. You know very well the direction of area vector is along the normal to the surface and N cap is unit vector. So alternately you can represent flux as B ds cos theta, or if the magnetic field is uniform throughout the area, then you can simply say the entire magnetic flux phi. Earlier we were saying d phi, a small amount of magnetic flux linked with a small surface. So the total flux you can also write as B A cos theta, where B is the magnetic field, A is the area and theta is the angle between magnetic field and area vector. So flux not only depends upon magnetic field and area but also depends upon angle. And from trigonometry you know कि if the angle is between 0 to 90, that is in first quadrant, or the second case 270 to 360, that is fourth quadrant, in first and fourth quadrant cos theta is positive, so will be the flux. While if the angle is 90 or 270, then the value of cos 90 or 270 is 0, so flux will also be 0. If the angle lies in second or third quadrant, that is if it is between 90 degree to 270 degree, in that case the magnetic flux is negative. So let me quickly tell you what you need to carry from this point. What is magnetic flux? Definition. Then the mathematical formula. Okay. So definition is very simple. Number of field lines passing normally through any surface. And the formula is also simple. B A cos theta. Now let us move to next topic. Magnetic flux across a coil can be changed by changing. So you can see here there are three things, B, A and theta. So you can either change B, magnetic field, or you can change area of cross section, A, and you can also change the orientation of the coil with magnetic field, theta, or any of the combination of the above. Means it is not necessary that you at one time you change only one. You can change two things or three things also simultaneously. Okay. So these are some methods for changing flux. Now you see, magnetic flux is a scalar quantity, which is quite obvious from the formula also. B A cos theta, it is dot product of two vectors. So flux is just a number, it is a scalar quantity. Its SI unit is Weber or Tesla meter square. CGS units is Maxwell. 1 Maxwell stands for 10 to the power minus 8 Weber. Okay. And this magnetic flux per unit area is called magnetic flux density or strength of magnetic field or magnetic induction, which is simply represented by B. Now, related to this topic, electromagnetic induction, a very famous experiment of Faraday we are about to now know. Faraday did a series of experiments in order to get current with the help of magnetic field only. You may think, what is great behind this experiment? What is great idea behind this experiment? So I must tell you this thing. Normally, if we need current, we will be needing some source of EMF, a cell, a battery. But Faraday kept in his mind that is it possible to get electric current without battery? So he started experimenting with the help of a magnet and a coil, as you can see in your screen. So let us see the first case. In first case, you can see there are two coils and a magnet where you can see the north and south poles. In both the coils, a galvanometer is attached. This galvanometer can detect the presence of current, if any. And please see, there is no source of EMF. No battery is connected. So if at all current will come, it will be due to the magnet. So let us see what is going to happen in this experiment. So he took the magnet towards one of the coil, and you can notice, I will show you once again. Notice in both the coils there is momentarily deflection. In both the coils we had current. In the second example also, you can see the animation. When the magnet was moving, there was current in both the coils. But the thing to notice here is, in coils, the direction of current is just opposite to each other. If in the first coil the current is in anti-clockwise sense, then in the second coil it is in clockwise. While in the example number 2, in first coil the current is in clockwise sense, while in the second coil the current is in anti-clockwise sense. Let's see some more experiments. So what conclusion you can draw from here? Okay. See, now I am showing the magnet along with the magnetic field lines. Slowly the magnet is moving towards the coil. So you can see how the number of magnetic field lines linked with the coil is changing. As the magnet is approaching, line will start entering in the coil. Okay. So we can say magnetic flux linked with the coil changes relative to the position of the coil and the magnet due to the magnetic lines of force cutting at different angles at same cross-sectional area of the coil. Now you have to observe certain things. Number 1, the relative motion, the induced polarities. Induced polarities means and the direction of current through the galvanometer, and hence the deflection in the galvanometer. that the induced current is available only as long as there is relative motion between the coil and the magnet. The examples, the experiment which we discussed previously, we observed that current appears in the coils so long the magnet was moving. The moment magnet stops, the current also vanishes. Now, certain important points which you keep in your mind, that it is not the magic of motion of magnet. Same thing can be achieved by keeping the magnet fixed and moving the coil. Even both the coil and magnets can be moved, maybe towards each other or maybe away from each other. What is important is there must be a relative velocity between them. And magnetic flux linked with the coil changes relative to the positions of the coil and the magnet. Current and hence the deflection is large if the relative velocity between the coil and magnet, and hence the rate of change of flux across the coil is more. So up to this point, what we know, what we saw is there is something called magnetic flux, and whenever it changes, it produces current. So what is important for you? Anyhow, you have to change the magnetic flux. How it can be done? You are free to do anything. You can change the magnetic field, you can change the area, you can change the angle, or you can change any 2 or 3 of them also together. Now let us see the second experiment of Faraday. What he did, he took 2 coils, and please see, in the first coil there is a cell and a switch. So when you switch on, the current will flow in the first coil. The current will flow in the first coil. Okay? The current will flow here in the first coil. But you can see in the second coil there is no cell. So we should not expect any current here. But there is a galvanometer which is there just to ensure if there is a current, it will record. If there is no current, then fine. So let us see what will happen when we switch on. Well, the moment we switch on, you see it once again. The moment we switch on, we notice some current in the second coil. But very soon the current disappears also. So this is momentarily current. It comes and goes. Now in the second experiment, see, in the first coil, switch is on, current is flowing. In the second coil, there is no current, fine. Now what will happen if we switch off suddenly? Let's switch off. What we saw, again I am showing you. When we switch off, a current again comes for momentarily, for a very small time in the secondary coil. But this time the direction of current is just opposite of that which was obtained while switching on in the primary circuit. So in simple words, I can say, when we switch on the primary current, then secondary circuit also gets current. But it vanishes very soon. Then if we switch off the key switch in the primary coil, then once again the current comes in the secondary coil but in opposite direction. So what conclusion you can draw here? Ki when the primary circuit is closed, closed means switch is on. Okay? Then the flux changes in the primary coil which affects the secondary coil as well, and that induces the current in the secondary coil. Okay? Once the current gets stable, there is no change in magnetic flux, so current also vanishes in the secondary coil. Okay. So my point is again that the induced current comes only till the flux is changing. The moment flux stops changing, induced current also becomes zero. So the conclusions which you draw from here will be used later on while discussing self-inductance and mutual inductance. Okay. Now based on these experiments, Faraday gave a law which governs the phenomena electromagnetic induction. So this is how the science works. We carry out experiments, and from the result of experiments we derive laws. Well, before going to the law, I want you to recall the story of Newton, that one day he was sitting under an apple tree, and he noticed the apple falling in downward direction, and that triggers him to think about gravity and gravitational force. So experiments can be by chance or it can be planned, but in both cases the analysis of experiment always gives some law. So what is the law of Faraday here? First law. First law is whenever there is a change in magnetic flux and EMF and hence a current is induced in the circuit, however, it lasts only so long as the flux is changing. Second law. Second law will tell you the direction. The magnitude of induced EMF is directly proportional to the rate of change of flux. See, now we are going from qualitative study to quantitative, because we wish to have a formula. How much induced current is produced, it is directly proportional to the rate of change of flux. So if the flux is changing at a faster rate, then you will notice more induced current. So E is proportional to rate of change of flux, means mathematically it is d phi upon dt. Then you can write a constant k here, k d phi upon dt. The constant is so chosen that its value is 1. So no need to write the constant when we know that its value is 1. So from hereafter you got the formula for induced EMF as change in flux upon the time took to change the flux. So phi 2 minus phi 1 divided by t, or if the flux is changing continuously, then you use d phi upon dt. Okay. Now Lenz law. Well, at this point you might be wondering why the direction of current is opposite in the experiment number 1 in the first coil and in the second coil, or why the direction was opposite in experiment number 2 when we switched on and when we switched off. Is there a law which can help us to decide the direction of current, also to determine the direction of current? Yes, we have the law known as Lenz law, and it is a law based on the principle of conservation of energy. It says that the direction of current is such that it opposes the change that is producing it. So what is producing it? It is the changing flux which is producing the induced current. So the direction of induced current always opposes the change in magnetic flux. That is, if the current is induced due to motion of magnet, then induced current will oppose the motion of magnet. If the current is induced due to change in current in the primary coil, means I am referring to the experiment number 2, then induced current is such that it tends to stop the change. This Lenz law is basically law of conservation of energy. Why? Let us try to understand. Because Lenz law says that the induced EMF opposes the cause which is producing the induced current. So how it is related to law of conservation of energy? See, very simple. If without the battery or cell one can get current, then definitely a question will arise कि are you getting electrical energy without expenditure of any other form of energy? Is it possible? Because the law of conservation of energy says energy can neither be created nor destroyed. So how can you create electrical energy? It's not possible. When we have a cell, we say the chemical energy is getting converted into electrical energy. But when we don't have a cell, then we have to justify from where the electrical energy is coming. So Lenz law say that the induced EMF opposes the cause, and then you have to overcome this opposition by wasting some of your mechanical energy, and which in turn gets converted into electrical energy. Okay, now the same thing can be discussed by contradiction method, that in the beginning we take a false notion that if the induced EMF does not oppose, that is if it is supporting the motion of the magnet, it means once you just throw the magnet towards a coil and you will get current for the infinite time without any expenditure of energy, which is strictly against the law of conservation of energy. Okay, so let's see next thing. Now the expression for induced EMF based on both the laws. So what laws we have? We have Faraday's law and one Lenz law. Faraday law will tell you the magnitude of induced EMF or current, and the Lenz law will tell you the direction of induced EMF or current. So we know E equals to minus d phi upon dt. Why minus sign? The minus sign is there to ensure that the induced EMF has opposing nature. It always opposes the change in magnetic flux. If you have some turns in the coil, then N will appear in the formula. Expression for induced current. So as we know, current is EMF upon resistance. So in the denominator, R will also appear. Expression for charge, we know charge is equal to current into time. So it will be simply minus d phi upon R. Okay. We know dq upon dt is the current, which is equal to minus d phi upon R dt. dt and dt will get cancelled. We will have dq equals to minus d phi upon R. So you have to remember the EMF does not depend on resistance, but the current do depend upon the resistance. Then we have some methods of producing induced EMF. Though we already discussed some of the methods by changing magnetic field. So how we can change magnetic field? By bringing a magnet close or farther from a coil, as done in the experiment number 1. 2. By changing the area of coil available in the magnetic field. This can be done by inserting a coil in the region of magnetic field or pulling it outwards from the magnetic field. See the diagram? These blue circles are representing the region of magnetic field, and you have a coil PQRS. How you can change the area? Right now, very very less area of the coil PQRS has magnetic field. So let us push this inside. So when we will push it inside the region of magnetic field, more and more area will see the magnetic field. So this is how we change the area. So we discussed two things: changing magnetic field, changing area. Okay, and the formula will be same. D phi equals to B dA. In place of dA we can write dA is the change in area, so it will be length into breadth, so L into V dt. So the last result is E equals to negative BLV, where B is the magnetic field, L is the length, and V is the velocity with which you are inserting the coil. Okay, the coil PQRS, with what velocity you are inserting is V. The induced EMF produced in this way, that is due to the motion of loop, is called motional EMF. Okay, it's not a new thing. It is also induced EMF, but since particularly it is getting produced as a result of motion of the coil, so sometimes we call it motional EMF. Even if the loop is pulled out now, we will again have the EMF BLV, but positive. And that negative positive, you know, it is due to the Lenz law. The direction of induced current is anti-clockwise in the loop, and it can be obtained by Fleming's right hand rule or Lenz rule. So Lenz rule already we have discussed. We can discuss then later on Fleming's right hand rule also. In the diagram you can see current, it is in anti-clockwise direction. Because Lenz rule says the direction of induced current is such that it opposes the cause of changing magnetic flux. Hence, the cause of changing magnetic flux is due to motion of the loop and increase in the area of the coil in the uniform magnetic field. There is a note: if the loop is completely inside the boundary of magnetic field, then there will not be any change in flux, so there will not be induced current in the loop. Because if you are moving the loop inside the region of magnetic field such that the whole of the loop is in the magnetic field, then there will be no change in the area and hence no change in the magnetic flux. So other than Lenz rule, we can also discuss Fleming's right hand rule for finding the direction of induced current. This right hand rule is very simple. Just stretch your thumb, index finger and forefinger mutually perpendicular like this. Here your index finger is pointing towards magnetic field and your thumb is pointing towards force. Force means the direction in which the coil is moving. Then your middle finger will give the direction of induced current. Okay. Same thing you can apply in the previous diagram to get the direction of current at any point. Now the third method is by changing the orientation of the coil theta in the magnetic field, because the flux is BA cos theta. So we can also do it by changing the angle theta. Let us see how. In the diagram right now you can see magnetic field lines, they are parallel and equidistant, which is the indication that the magnetic field is uniform. And here we have a coil. What will happen if we start turning the coil like this? So when we will turn the coil, the angle theta will start changing continuously, and that will change the magnetic flux and as a result of change in magnetic flux, induced current will be produced. So this is the method which we adopt in electric generator to produce electric current continuously. Because what you saw in the Faraday's experiment number 1 and number 2, we were getting current only for a limited time, not continuously. For getting continuous current, the best way is to rotate the coil, and which is actually done in the electric generator. Okay, so here you can mathematically also work out this. The flux, you know, B A cos theta. If the number of turns are n will also appear. If the angular velocity of rotation of the coil is omega, then you know omega is theta upon t, or theta is equal to omega t. Putting there, cos theta will become cos omega t. Now the induced EMF is given by minus d phi upon dt. So you can do d phi upon dt. You know very well n, b, a are constant, and the differentiation of cos is negative sine omega t into omega. Okay. So this is simple mathematics. Differentiation, you can see the table of differentiation. Differentiation of cos is minus sine, and one minus already comes in the Faraday's law. So overall you will get negative will become positive. So the final formula is E equals to NBA omega sine omega t, or E equals to E naught sine omega t, where E naught is called the maximum EMF. Because you know very well the value of sine can be 0, it can be 1 by 2, it can be 1 by root 2, it can be root 3 by 2, but the maximum value of sine theta is 1. So the maximum EMF which you can get is NBA omega. In short, we write it E naught. So here the EMF changes continuously in magnitude and periodically in direction with respect to time, and giving rise to alternating EMF. See the graph. I have plotted some angles 90, 180, 270, 360 and more. So 90 intervals are there. In terms of rotation of the coil, you can say 90 degree means a quarter of rotation. If you have a coil, the complete rotation is 360. But if I am saying 90 means 1/4 of the rotation. So T by 4, T by 2, 3T by 4, T is the time period. T is the time period for rotation. So what kind of graph we expect? We have sine theta. We all know the graph nature of sine theta. Yes, like this. So this is how the EMF changes with time. You can see in the graph, EMF will first increase, will become maximum, then decrease, it will become 0. Then again increase but in opposite direction, will become maximum, and then again reduce to 0. And it will keep on happening so long the coil is rotating. There are some places where the EMF is maximum, and there are some places where EMF is 0. So this is the nature of alternating EMF. Now one more case is there, that if the initial position of the coil is taken as 0 degree, although in my diagram I took it 90 degree, but if you take 0 degree as the initial position, then the angle will become 90 plus theta, then cos will come, and you will have the graph of cos like this. Nothing will change, both means the same thing, alternating EMF, whether it is sine or cos. In both cases we call it alternating EMF. So this method of inducing EMF is the basic principle of generators, and generator is something which we know very well. The next topic is eddy currents or Foucault currents. So I must tell you that you are not going to learn anything new so long you understand the concept of induced current. Even the eddy current is also same, But earlier we were discussing wires, loops, but now we will take a metallic surface. Instead of wire, we have a surface of metal. So how eddy currents are produced? See, if you have a metallic block and if the magnetic flux linked with it gets changed, then the induced current is set up in the form of small circular loops. These loops looks like eddies in water. That is why this is known as eddy currents. And since these currents were discovered by the scientist Foucault, so sometimes we also call them Foucault current. So it's not a new thing. It is also induced current, but the only difference is instead of having a coil of wire, now we have a full metallic surface. There are some useful applications and undesirable effects of eddy currents. So first let us see the applications of eddy currents. These are used in melting iron ore, etc. in induction furnace. Now you may be surprised how it can be used for melting. See, whenever there is a current, you know current produces heat. So what we do, we take a metallic block, we rotate it very fast in magnetic field due to production of current. It gets heated and even it may melt as well. In speedometer also eddy currents are used for measuring the speed of vehicle. In deadbeat galvanometer, eddy currents are used to stop the damping of the coil in a shorter interval. The point number 3 you will understand well when you will study about the galvanometer later on. Then in electric brakes of the train, eddy currents are produced to stop the rotation of axle of the wheel. So it can used there also. In energy meters, eddy currents are used to measure the consumption of electrical energy. So sometimes in examination they ask the application just to write the application, not in detail. You just need to write where they can be used. In diathermy, eddy currents are used for localized heating of tissues in human bodies. So it is kind of physiotherapy. Now, 2 more topics are there in this chapter. One is self-induction, other is mutual induction. Induction is something which we understood up to this point. Induction means due to change in magnetic flux, induced current will produce. What do we call self-induction? It happens when you have a coil and whenever you try to grow the current or decay the current in the coil, then some opposition comes in the coil, which is called self-inductance. Now it is very much similar to inertia of a body which opposes the change in its state of rest or motion. So similarly, when you try to increase or decrease current in a coil, remember the word coil. It will happen only when you have a coil. So whenever you try to increase or decrease the current in a coil, then it will oppose. This phenomena is called self-induction. Now self-induction can be measured by a constant known as coefficient of self-induction or simply self-inductance. Phi is proportional to I, where I is the current and phi is the flux, and phi equals to Li, where L is called self-inductance or coefficient of self-induction. So you can also define it by taking current as 1 ampere, then your self-inductance L will be equal to simply flux. Okay, and you know induced EMF is minus d phi upon dt. In place of phi you can write Li. So induced EMF can also be written as minus L di upon dt. If di upon dt is 1, then L equals to E. So we can see this thing happening for the case of a solenoid. One more thing, the SI unit of self inductance is Henry. 1 Henry you can define by taking current 1 ampere and magnetic flux 1 Weber. In the formula, you know phi equals to Li. So if phi is 1 Weber, I is 1 ampere, then your inductance will be 1 Henry. So this topic is very important, self-inductance of a solenoid. Solenoid is something which you know very well. This is a solenoid. So how much self-inductance it will offer when we try to increase or decrease current through it. Let's say its length is L, area is A, some current I is flowing. So you know the magnetic field of solenoid. Already you studied these things. It's mu naught Ni. So magnetic field you have, then what is the flux for one turn? It's B into A. You can put the value of B. Then if we see the magnetic flux linked across n turns of the coil, then you have to multiply it by n, so it will become n square. But you know phi equals to Li. So apart from I, whatever is there, it is phi. Sorry, it is L. So we got the coefficient of self-induction as mu naught n square A upon L or mu naught n square AL. No need to get confused in small n and capital N, because small n represents the number of turns per unit length, while capital N represents total number of turns. So small n is nothing but capital N divided by L. Energy in inductor. How much magnetic energy is stored in inductor? You can calculate by using the formula work done is equal to voltage into current VIT. So voltage is EMF is E, current is I, and you have time dt. You can then integrate it and you will get the formula half Li square. This is very much similar to the formula which you obtained for capacitor, which was half CV square. So here the work done is half Li square. Now we have the second kind of induction called mutual induction. So mutual means it will involve two coils. One is called primary coil, other is called secondary coil. So whenever we change current in the primary coil, current in the secondary coil also induced. So how do we define mutual inductance there? Phi to 1 is the flux of secondary coil due to 1. It is directly proportional to current flowing in the first coil 1. For removing proportionality sign, we have a constant M, which is nothing but mutual inductance. And the same kind of argument we can apply here by taking current 1. We can define M as equal to phi, or you can rewrite in terms of induced EMF also using the Faraday law, and then claiming if di upon dt is 1, then your M is equal to E. So M can be defined in various ways. SI unit of this mutual inductance is also Henry. So self-inductance and mutual inductance, they are similar to each other. I am not saying exactly same. They are similar. Self-inductance for one coil only. Mutual inductance means whatever changes you are doing in first coil, the effect of those changes you are noticing in the secondary coil. And mutual inductance, I must tell you, this makes the basis of a device which you can see everywhere around you, known as transformer, which will come in the chapter alternating current, the very next chapter. Let's see if we have two long coaxial solenoids. This is first solenoid, this is second solenoid. Now in primary coil I will give some current and I will see what is happening in the secondary coil. So magnetic flux due to primary solenoid, the first thing is magnetic field. For field we have the same formula, B equals to mu naught Ni. So flux per turn will be equal to B into A. Then we can find out flux linked across all the turns, n turns, by multiplying it by n. But you know the flux is equal to M multiplied by current. So apart from current, everything which is there is the mutual inductance. Similarly, you can get the mutual inductance of 1 with respect to 2, but both comes out to be same. M12 and M21 are same. So it doesn't matter which coil you are choosing as primary and which coil you are choosing as secondary. In both the cases, the coefficient of mutual inductance is same. Now there are, at the end of this chapter, first of all I just want to give you the summary what you studied in this chapter. We started with the concept of magnetic flux, then the ways to changing magnetic flux. Then we discussed two experiments of Faraday. In the first experiment, a magnet was moving. In the second experiment, we were switching on and off the primary circuit. Then based upon those two experiments, we saw the law of Faraday. Then for finding the direction of current, we saw the Lenz rule. After the Lenz rule, we saw the motional EMF. After motional EMF, we saw the case of generator, the concept of generator. How do we get current? By rotating a coil. And at the end, we studied about self-induction and mutual induction. So theoretically, this is the end of the chapter. I will share some numericals also related to this chapter in some other video. But you may have some additional information here for the pair of solenoids, like instead of air, if you have some core material, then you know very well that relative permeability will turn up. If the solenoids have number of turns N1, N2 of different radii R1 and R2, so always remember the smaller radius will appear in the formula of area. Means we are concerned with the common area. Mutual inductance depends on the relative placement also, and there is a term called coefficient of coupling, which is defined as M upon under root L1 L2, where M is the mutual inductance and L1 L2 are the individual coefficient of self-induction for both the coils. So this is the end. Thank you so much for learning these concepts. The numericals will be discussed in the next video.